right, so it is Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday. And I am looking at 5 more questions that were submitted over the last week from you all. And again, if I did not answer your question this week, please continue to submit it. I want to select 5 so that I have time to answer the questions all thoroughly. So please, if I don't answer your question, when there's one that I see over and over, those are the ones I tend to gravitate toward because I see that they are coming back. So I will get to your questions. Submit one down below in the comments, please, so that I can answer your question soon. Now, remember, my opinion doesn't make it right. You guys are very, very willing to share with me when my opinion sucks. And occasionally you'll even tell me when you agree with my opinion, and that's cool. That's the whole point of this, is that this is an opinion, and I try to pick questions that are not factually based. It's not, who was the 7th best pitcher of all time based on ERA. It's who do you think is a value to potentially pick up in the 1950s? And then I can give you an opinion on it. So as always, I'm not going to be shy about my opinion. We all have an opinion. I appreciate that you're interested in my opinion. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first question right now, and I will start giving you my opinion.
What are your thoughts on player runs? I enjoy seeing the evolution of cards, the aging of the player throughout their career, and sometimes the odd uniform that they end their careers with.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's all about. What it's all about is collecting who we like. So who do we like? That's who we should collect. Remember, it's not about collecting who other people like. It's not about collecting what we think might go up in value. It's about we see a card and we like it. So a player run is perfectly in line with that. I remember as a kid, I would go through value boxes. There were quarter boxes at the time. And if there was a Roger Clemens card that I didn't already have, I would buy it. I have like 150 different Roger Clemens cards from 1984 to about 1992. And that was my player run. Now I collect, Gale Sayers and Jim Brown. I've got, some Lou Alcindor cards. I've got, there's a variety of players that I like, that I collect player runs of. So at the end of the day, collecting is supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be about collecting. So if you see a card that's in a grade different than what you might normally think, oh yeah, I would buy in this grade, but you like the looks of it, you should get it. I don't show up at card shows with like a checklist of things I'm looking to buy. I don't have I got to get one of these and I just walk around, and when I see something cool that I like, I buy it. And a lot of the time, that tends to be players that I collect. So, player runs are awesome. I think, like you mentioned, the evolution of seeing the player age over time. One of the reasons I like first and second year cards, even though I think rookie cards are really expensive, is because you see how young they are, especially in the 50s and 60s. Some of these guys were 17, 18, 19, 20 years old when they're breaking into the majors because, there wasn't the college baseball thing that there is now. There wasn't the long developmental process through the minors like there is now. The guys, a lot of the times, if you were talented, you were on the fast track. Whether it be an Al Kaline or an Ernie Banks, those rookie cards in 1954 are so cool looking because of how young they are. You look at the last couple Hank Aaron cards and you're like, man, he's not a young guy anymore. But you look at his 54 Topps rookie card and he looks like a kid because he was. So player runs are awesome. To me, collecting is all about getting what you like. And if there's a player that you're a big fan of, yeah, go after all of their cards.
When you're a buyer, are you willing to buy cards with a wrinkle or two, or possibly even creases in it?
Now, I think that my collecting habits have changed over the years. They've definitely evolved. I mean, there was a time where the thought of buying a card that had a crease in it was like not even an option. I wouldn't have even considered it. To me, for a long, long time, it was corners over centering all day long. It was about finding a card that looked as close to being out of the pack as possible. And then I started kind of getting, I don't know, things changed a little bit. And then, centering became a little bit more important to me than corners. If the corners had a touch, that wasn't that big a deal. But, I think it was my dad mentioned something. I was talking to him about like some Gaudis and T206s and early Bowman cards. And he said something that I think made a lot of sense. And it was the existence itself of an old vintage card like a T206 in itself is the beauty. So having a card that's over 100 years old, that was made on the cardstock that it was made on, and having it be decent at all is unbelievable. The fact that it even exists still is unbelievable. So the thought of collecting one of these cards and it just has a little wrinkle in it and it's 100 years old and it came out of a pack of cigarettes, like that doesn't bother me at all, like at all. Again, for me, it's about when I look at the card, does it look good to me or is there something about the card that bugs me? If there's a mark or a centering or a corner or a tweak that bugs me when I'm looking at it, I shouldn't buy it. I should just be buying a card that when I look at it, it looks good to me. I mean, I was looking at a card online today, and it's probably a PSA 2 at best. It's probably a PSA 1. But it just looked good. I just like the looks of it. And so I genuinely believe that grades are overrated. I think that having the card itself is the most important part. I've made several videos on how grades are overrated. PSA 1s sometimes are really nice cards. PSA 3s, I've seen some PSA 3s that I think are awful. I've seen some SGC 3s that I think are awful. And I've seen some 1s and 2s that just suit my eye. So if you look at a card and you see a crease and it's just bugging you, then I wouldn't buy the card. But if it has a crease, I wouldn't eliminate it just because it has a crease. I would not eliminate any card because of a crease or a wrinkle, as long as when you look at it, you like the looks of it. And do I have cards that I like the looks of that have creases? Yes. That have wrinkles? Yes, I do. So to me, I can't really describe exactly what my criteria is, but I can tell you that there are a lot of cards that are good looking cards that I would be happy to own that have creases.
Any suggestions on vintage sets of baseball and football that are affordable to collect?
So there are a couple of terms that are in this question that I think are very different from one person to another. So it will make it a little bit harder than some questions for me to give my input on. So the first part of the question that I think is a little bit difficult to answer is, what is your definition of vintage? Some people think vintage is anything before 1980. Some people would say before 1970. So, if I were to give a recommendation, part of my answer would have to do with what is your definition of vintage. To me, pretty much anything before 1980 is basically vintage at this point. Definitely before 1970, but from 70 to 80 is sort of in that is it vintage period. Clearly vintage is anything before, 1969 and before for me is vintage. So I'm going to answer the question based on the definitions as they fall for me. So I would say pre-1970 would be vintage. The second part is what is affordable. Now, I'm a teacher and I have a lot of expenses. I've got 2 high school kids that have activities and they have cars and they have lives. And, I don't have an outrageous income as a teacher. So my opinion of affordable might be different than someone else's. Now, if you're collecting just for what's affordable, then I would say the key there is a set that doesn't have any major rookie cards, right? So, you go, oh, well, I personally think affordable sets that are underappreciated and underpriced are the 1950s Bowman sets. I think they're for what they are, I think that they're very, very affordable for what they are. But, you look at the 1950 Bowman set and there's really one huge card, which is the Jackie Robinson card. But other than that one huge card, most of the rest are fairly affordable. There's a lot of second-year cards. There's a lot of third-year cards. It's a third-year Barra, right? It's you've got like a second-year Campanella. You've got a second-year Dobie. There's a few in there that I think are not super expensive. So if you're talking about affordable, again, everybody's definition of affordable is different. So value sets, I think, are the Bowman sets. But then you get to the 51 Bowman, and now you have a Mays rookie and a Mantle rookie. So I wouldn't say go pick up that set and build that set because you've got 2 massive cards in it. So, and then again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier is you really need to make sure it's something you like. Like something that's very affordable is the 55 Bowman set. And one of the reasons the 55 Bowman set is so affordable is because a lot of people don't like it. Now, I don't mind it, but a lot of people don't like it. So if they don't like it, it tends to be an affordable set. So if you're looking for just affordability, then maybe the 55 Bowman set, there's a lot of bang for your buck in that set. I wouldn't collect the 63 top set because there's just an insane amount of cost in picking up a Pete Rose to fill out the set. So, long story short, I think the real good value are the sets that don't have the massive rookie cards, but then do you want to collect a set that doesn't have a massive rookie card, right? 61 and 62 don't have massive rookie cards. They have some nice rookie cards, but they don't have massive ones. The 50 Bowman set doesn't have a massive rookie card, but it has a couple of expensive cards. If we're talking football, in football, you've got the 57s have a couple of big rookie cards in Unitas and Bart Starr. And then the 58s have the Jim Brown rookie card. But then you go to the 59s and there's not a massive rookie card. So if I'm looking at a vintage football set, I go, well, the 59, the Jim Brown at that point and the Bart Starr at that point and the Unitas at that point are fairly affordable. So I think the 59 football is a pretty decent one because it's got some early cards, but they're still affordable. If you want to go earlier than that, there's the 1950 Bowman, has the autogram rookie. It also has an early Sammy Baugh card, but then you go to like a 51 or even a 52. I really like the 52 Bowman football set. And there's a lot of like second, third, fourth year cards. So, again, everybody's definition is different on what is affordable and what is vintage. But off the top of my head, without doing a lot of research, I would say, things that I would look towards and I think of as affordable would be the 50 and 55 Bowman baseball, the 61 and 62 baseball, and the 59 football and the 52 Bowman football are all sets that I like that I think are still fairly affordable.
Aside from sports cards, do you see value in original photos used for vintage sports cards? For example, an original photo used for Willie Mays' 1953 Topps or Mantle's 51 Bowman.
So this is a really interesting question. So first, when you're starting to talk about type 1 and type 2 photos, and the question went on to talk about even type 3 and type 4 photos, but when you're talking about type 1 and type 2 photos, so a type 1 photo, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a photo taken from the original negative in a relatively short period of time after the actual photograph, the negative, was originally made, like within 15 or 20 years. And then a type 2 photo would be taken from the original negative, but after some time had passed. Now, I think anytime you have anything that's card related, there are going to be people that are interested. I think it would be cool to have a type 1 photo of the picture that the 52 Mantle Topps Mantle card is based on, is that painting is based on. I think that would be very cool. How much I'd be willing to pay is maybe a different story. But as we know, everything is supply and demand. Everything. So it doesn't matter if I think something cool or if you think something's cool. The value will only go up based on if a lot of people think it's cool. I collected ticket stubs for a long time, and they were dirt cheap. I've had a few Jesse Owens Olympic ticket stubs. I've had a Reggie Jackson 3 home run in a World Series game ticket stub. I've had some cool Michael Jordan ticket stubs. So, and then now it seems like ticket stubs are starting to kind of take off a little bit. So what other people are going to start being interested in, I have no idea. I think that you could definitely make the argument that that's something that I could see people expanding to being more interested in. Will they be the same people that are interested in cards? Maybe or maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, I think that stuff is cool. I think some of the oddball or peripheral things in the card industry are cool, but it's just a matter of what is going to be mainstream popular in order to really get prices up. I think there's a very good chance that type 1, type 2 photos, as companies like PSA are starting to grade them and authenticate them and encapsulate them, that it's going to kind of pull more collectors into some of those different areas as they're grading them and making them more mainstream and creating awareness to them. So I think there is definitely a chance that those sorts of things are going to be on the rise as far as value. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of people that are interested in a lot of things that I don't understand, and there are a lot of people that aren't interested in things that I think are really interesting. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, but I would tend to think, yeah, there's probably some value. There's some value there that will probably continue to increase in demand.
When I watch YouTube videos, I see people, sometimes kids, spending hundreds of dollars on modern cards, and most of them will end up in the bargain bin. How do they get caught up in the hype, and where do these people get their money?
End up in the bargain bin. Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you. So there's a few places I could go with my response on this one. So I'm going to just first start with spending money on this stuff. I don't understand how and why a lot of people make the financial decisions that they make. There are a lot of people that spend a lot of money on a lot of things that I just flat out don't get. My priorities are different than a lot of people's priorities. basically these are people that are playing slot machines, right? If you're buying modern wax, you are going up to the roulette table and you're putting $100 on a number, and then you're hoping the number hits, and usually it's not going to hit, right? You are going up to a $100 slot machine, which, by the way, TikTok videos, if you're a TikTok person, watching people play high dollar slot machines on TikTok is wildly entertaining. But it's their money they're playing with, not mine. That's why it's entertaining for me. I wouldn't be able to handle that. So why do people buy this stuff knowing it's going to end up in a bargain bin? I mean, I was literally at a show this weekend, the Santa Clara show that I recently posted, and there were a couple of like 1 of 1 or 1 of 5 Deshaun Watson cards in there for like $40. And I'm like, man, I bet this card, 3 years ago was really expensive. And now it's at a bargain. I mean, I literally was thinking that. And yeah, it's the same reason though. I think we all, to a certain extent, if we're a fan of the sport, we're watching the sport and we see the young person and we go, well, maybe this is the next great pitcher. Maybe this is the next Sandy Koufax. I mean, I remember the day that they called up Clayton Kershaw and everybody was like, this is the next Sandy Koufax. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I mean, it's the next Sandy Koufax, and I remember I was actually at the first game, at Buster Posey's first game, who was obviously, I think probably a Hall of Fame catcher. And it was a big deal that he finally got called up. And it was, so I think there's an excitement around the possible upward potential of, hey, if we throw a dart and we hit the right guy, then we could hit it big. But it is no different than playing the roulette table, and it's no different than pulling a slot machine, But I collected, and I remember opening an 88 Fleer pack and getting a Greg Jeffries rookie and thinking that I had the card, And I remember, opening some packs of 89 Donruss looking for Ken Griffey Jr. cards and feeling like, wow, this is big time. So I think it's somewhat natural to look at those up and coming type players. But the amount of money that people are spending, I mean, they'll open a pack that's like thousands of dollars for like 7 cards. And then, occasionally you'll see video of somebody just going crazy because they just hit a big time card. And I could see how that would be a massive adrenaline rush, but I don't know where these people are getting their money. I don't know where they're getting their money. I don't know what they're doing. And yeah, most of those guys will probably end up in the bargain bin. But I think they keep holding on to hope of, what if this is not a bargain bin and this is the next Tom Brady, right? Or this is the next LeBron James, or the next Steph Curry, or the next, Pat Mahomes, because some of those cards are selling for crazy money, which is also wild how much those guys' cards are selling for. So I probably didn't answer your question. I probably just rambled and agreed with you mostly, but yeah, interesting how people make habits. And I think it's always been this way, maybe. We just didn't really know about it before. But now people are like recording themselves opening packs. They're recording themselves, buying things and selling things. And the exchange of information is just off the charts. And so I wonder, is this a new phenomenon, or is this just a phenomenon that we're now more aware of? But yeah, the amount of money being spent on blaster boxes and hobby boxes is is incredible.
All right. If you've got a question, please post it below in the comments so I can answer it next week.